welcome or welcome back. I'm Tamara, I love to knit, and today's video is going to be another knitting podcast episode. So I'm going to share what are some of my projects I've been working on, talk about like yarn and fiber choices and design inspo and things like that. First things first, I did say in my last podcast episode that I was going to wear the top that I finished last time in this video, and I just want you to know that I actually fully finished it like I said I would. In the last one, I just had made the I-cord straps like 2 to 3 inches too long. I finally trimmed them and seamed them to the back. I'm glad that I had made that promise because I am nothing if not deadline driven, and it actually like kind of forced me to think about this pattern again because I made it and then kind of just let it languish the last few weeks while it wasn't finished. And revisiting it made me think, oh yeah, I really liked it. So I actually spent like a couple hours yesterday working on the pattern for it. So that one is almost finished. I think I just need to do some yarn estimates because I couldn't find my little kitchen scale yesterday that I used to measure like the yardage that I've used for a project. So I just need to add some yarn estimates, and then that one should be ready for testers really soon. So I'm excited about that. I generally share my tester calls on Instagram, and I also have started a mailing list. So I send the tester call out to my mailing list first. I just thought that was kind of like a nice way for people who are like, have been waiting around for a long time to hear about a particular pattern that they can kind of get first dibs. So I'll put the link in my bio for both of those if you're like interested in any particular pattern. Next one, I guess technically is not a finished object, but maybe it is if you think about a pattern, if you like print it out, it is an object. But the pattern for my bagette bag has been published. There's the cherry version, and I also made a heart version. And it was so fun to see all of my testers actually finish theirs because I made 4 embroidery charts for this. So added a star and sparkles, and I hadn't made those, so like I didn't really know what they looked like on the bag yet. So that was so fun to see my testers make them. And then one of my testers added like a little tiny rosette and a crocheted bow onto her. Very sweet and cute. And yeah, this was a really fun test knit, and I felt like I had a really fun, great group, and I'm so into all the bags that they made. So that was really exciting. In terms of knitted objects I knitted between now and the last video that I made, I actually didn't even share this one in the previous video that I made because I hadn't started it yet. I wasn't even a twinkle in my eye. I didn't think that I was going to work on it, but I just felt the urge to, and I always just follow knitting whatever it is that I'm like inspired to knit at a given time. So that is how I like stay inspired and motivated. I just like always want to have something on my needles because I don't like the restlessness of not having something to work on. So I hadn't planned to make this one, but I was kind of waiting on other yarn for a cardigan that I wanted to start. So I ended up making this collared sweater. So this is using Wool and the Gang Shiny Happy Cotton, which is a heavy worsted / Aran weight, and this is using US 8 and 7 needles, and it's like about 4 stitches per inch. I had quite a saga with this sweater. So actually the very first version of this sweater that I made, I should just show you all of these versions, like try them on. So this was the very first version that I made, was in white. This is Cascade 220 yarn, and I had gotten it at a thrift store, and this was actually my first sweater that I ever self-drafted. It was a very free-form process. Like I literally casted on what looked like about the width of my neck when viewed on the needles, like extremely imprecise. Gauge, what's that? I don't know how to calculate anything at that point. And then I just increased on either side until it looked like it was about the width of a baggy sweater. Everything was like completely uninformed, basically. Like I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep increasing. And then once it seems like it's about the length of a V-neck, then I will join them together. I've never really talked about this sweater's inspo before. So I had a totally different vision for this collar. I'll add an inspiration photo, and it was based off of I think a Frank and Oak sweater that had like a plunging notch V-neck. And I started this, and then I realized like, wait, duh, the inspo was in garter stitch, which doesn't curl in at the ends, and mine is in stockinette, which super curls. So the entire collar was like curling inwards, so you couldn't even see that it was like a kind of collar and then a V-neck. So I thought that looked bad. It kind of did. I didn't really know about I-cord edging at that point. Maybe I could have experimented with like adding an I-cord border to see if that sort of like stiffened up the stockinette edge, but I didn't know about that. So first I tried to do a 1x1 V-neck, and I'll add a photo of that. I was really unhappy with it because I had casted on stitches at the base of the V-neck. You can see there's like this sort of flat portion here, and that was because I was trying to do that big wide notch. But then when I tried just adding a regular 1x1 V-neck without an overlap, it like had to kind of curve to meet that, and it just looked kind of sloppy in my opinion. I wasn't really happy with it. So I ended up redoing it and going with this fold over look. So that was sort of like how this first version of the sweater was created, but I wasn't totally happy with this sweater, and I'll show you the things I wasn't happy about with it. One thing that I didn't like is I didn't like how far back this collar would sit, and that's for like a few reasons. So one is that it would kind of pull back as I wore it. Let's see if I can stand up here. So that also would mean that this front would come up when this would pull back when I wore it. That's super cropped in the front, so it was more cropped than I wanted. The back was baggier than I wanted. Like, I knew I wanted it to be baggy, but I didn't like this, like, I didn't like the folds of extra fabric there. And then the other problem with it pulling back when I wore it is that you like wouldn't be able to see the collar when I wore it. So it wouldn't do that constantly, but I would find myself wearing it and like tugging it down. And yeah, so a lot of people had asked for a pattern for this, but like I just wasn't comfortable, I guess, with releasing the pattern when I felt like I really wasn't happy with the way that it fit on me, because it felt like, I don't know, if you're just making something for yourself, you like are more understanding about it, I guess. But I just felt like I wouldn't feel proud of it if I put it out, and other people struggled with that same issue. And then another thing that made it challenging for me was the way that I had done the increases for this, like going from the back of the neck to the shoulder. So I just did an increase on each side, but that makes this huge trapezoid shape. And I got kind of stuck trying to figure out how to grade that for other sizes, because like the wider that you're trying to make the drop shoulder to accommodate a much larger bust, the more increases you would need to go from the back of the neck, because the back of the neck measurement on size charts only differs by like maybe a few inches, like maybe 5 inches to 8 inches or something like that for this back neck measurement. But then the full width measurement for a drop shoulder, which is based off of your bust, could vary a huge amount from like size 28 to a size 62. And I just like couldn't wrap my head around how to get the neck from this like not that different of a size to like a way different size without it ending up being this like super, super long trapezoid. I guess like I could have done multiple increases on each side. I literally thought about that right this moment saying this out loud, but whatever. I got hung up on grading that. I also didn't know anything about grading at the time. Like I'd never done any grading before when I first made this. So this was in January of 2022. So just like a year and change. And then I also made this version. This one is in We Are Knitters Marrow Wool, which is a superwash merino. I think it's either bulky or Aran weight. So this one I had wanted to like try to fix those fit issues, but I'm bad at delaying gratification. I like still couldn't wrap my head around what I needed to fix on the other one. And I just wanted to make this sweater because I wanted to wear it. So I just made it without changing anything, and I still was unhappy with all the exact same things I was unhappy with before. Like this collar pulls back, you kind of can't see it. I did remove some of the bulk of this one though, so I was happy with that. It wasn't quite as oversized as the previous one. This is my new finished version. So I am happy with the amount of ease on the body and the sleeves, And I also changed the collar so that it is like forward more, so you can actually see it when you're wearing it. And it doesn't pull back the same way that the other one was doing when I would wear it. So I fixed the things that I was really unhappy with before. And I'm really happy with this one. And this one is in Wool & the Gang Shiny Happy Cotton. And I had actually bought this yarn like last summer and tried to make the entire sweater. This is all that remains because I frogged basically all of it to remake this version. I had changed some things about the shoulders to try to fix the issues I was unhappy with in the other ones, but I like hadn't shortened the V-neck to account for how like farther forward the collar was, so I had a deeper V-neck. And I also made it in only gray, and this colorway is called jog gray. I had thought for some reason that it was going to be like a lighter heather gray, and then when I actually got it and I knitted it up like an entire gray, I just felt like sad. I don't know, it just bummed me out for some reason. It felt like the equivalent of wearing like bagged out gray sweatpants. I just wasn't happy with it, and I felt like I wasn't going to wear it that much. So for this version, I decided, okay, why don't I add these like alternating stripes of ivory, which were just scrap yarn that I had left over. And I like can't even tell you how exactly just enough yarn I had. I probably would have added like one more stripe to the body if I could have, but I literally ended with like that much yarn. So it worked out really well. But I feel like the stripes in this colorway give me a little bit more of like a nautical vibe, and that makes the gray feel like casual and summery rather than just like sad like before. So I'm actually really happy with that, and I like the way the stripes interact with this kind of like vintage inspired collar with like the 2x2 rib. I'm trying to knit things that I want to wear. So I felt like since I had sort of the medium weight Cascade one, the chunkier We Are Knitters one, that this cotton one gives me like sort of an all seasons, like this is going to be a good one to throw on like cool spring and summer nights. Like, you know, if you're by the beach or something and like the ocean breeze gets a little bit chilly, I feel like this will just be really nice to throw on over, you know, the linen dress that I wore during the day or something like that. So I'm really happy with it as like a layering piece. And I will say for the wintry ones too, I actually tend to gravitate towards those. Those are probably my most worn winter sweaters because I feel like, for me at least, having like the very open neck, first of all, makes me less sensitive to whatever wool I use because I'm like a little more sensitive around my neck than I am anywhere else. And then I also think, because I'd be like going on walks a lot in the winter, and I live in Vermont, which is very cold in the winter, but it's nice to be able to wear a scarf and then take the scarf off if you're like overheating on your walk. If I wear very bulky crew neck sweaters, I just start to feel a little bit claustrophobic and hot. And even just for like working from home, I felt like I just like having a very open neckline. I think I like, you know, wearing like my little dainty jewelry or something. It just makes me feel like I have sort of a balance of like my big baggy cozy sweater, but then like a little dainty open neck moment. Anyway, that is sort of why I'm so into these sweaters. I also finally wrote up a pattern for it, which people have been asking me for like literally a year at this point. I changed the shoulder shaping to use short rows, which I'm listing as kind of optional in the pattern if you're like a super beginner, you don't want to try them, but it's just a little bit of short row shaping, so I feel like it's a good reason to learn it for someone who hasn't tried it before, just because short rows are something that you will come across in a lot of things in your knitting lifetime, and it's just like a really good shaping technique to know. So I kind of like the idea that it's like generally a pretty easy beginner friendly sweater, but like kind of gives you a reason to learn this like slightly more intermediate skill. And also this one you don't need to add stripes. I just did to balance out that like gray that was bumming me out, but you can totally do it solid colored too, like my other two versions. So I'm gonna be looking for testers really soon, maybe even before I post this video. So I guess check out my Instagram if you're curious what the status is on the testing for this. Oh, and I decided to call it the prep school pullover. Something about this 2x2 rib feels a little bit vintage preppy to me, and the collared sweater, and especially with the nautical stripe. Also, I have been watching the original Gossip Girl series lately, and so maybe that is just like influencing my aesthetic vision for this, that I'm like, you know, old money prep school Gossip Girl vibes. Okay, now I'm just going on a complete tangent, but I also checked out the original Gossip Girl book from the library, which I've always argued that the fashion in the books is so much better than the fashion in the shows, because in the books, it's like a combination of 2000s party girl and like effortless old money prep school chic. Whereas in the show, I feel like it's a lot more like mid 2000s, kind of like overly costumey preppy rather than like effortless preppy, if that makes sense. Anyway, I was thinking about doing either like a YouTube series or maybe a TikTok series on going through the fashion in the book. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. It's like not really knitting related per se, although there is like knitwear discussed. This is just like an idea I have had in my mind for so long. So anyway, that is just a total side note. So prep school pullover, stay tuned for the tester call, coming at you soon. I'm really excited about this one. Okay, so let me show you some of my current works in progress. So this first one I had actually shown you in my last podcast episode when it was yay big, just like 2 inches from the cast on, I think. This one I've been calling in my head the Odette tank top because it reminds me a little bit of the White Swan in Swan Lake. It has these little corset, hold on, let me tie the bow, corset ribbon details up these straps. I knitted this one bottom up from the bust with a provisional cast on and then top down. And I added a little bit of a rounded hem with an I-cord bind off, but I need to redo the I-cord bind off because it's a little bit too tight. And this one is in Cascade Anchor Bay yarn, which is 50% cotton, 50% merino. So I've had some problems with this project. The first problem I showed you guys in the last podcast, I had used this red scrap yarn to do the provisional cast on. And like I said, it's like right across the fullest part of the bust. And when I ended up taking the provisional cast on out to join and go down from there, it wasn't that the yarn dye had bled, but like individual little fibers from the red had gotten trapped into the white yarn. And so there was just this like big pink stripe directly across like where your nipple line would be. So not cute. Wasn't sure if I was gonna like redo the whole top or what I was gonna do, but I ended up like picking up with my needle the stitches just above that and then just cutting off all the yarn underneath it and like slowly unpicking it. And that worked great, actually. I was full of doubt and I actually did it at like a local yarn shop meetup and all of them were like, we're gonna laugh when this crashes and burns, but it did not crash and burn. So I got back on the needles and I was knitting away after like maybe 10 minutes of fussing with it, maybe less even. So it worked really well. So that is, I guess, a takeaway for me is like, don't be scared to just your shit up. When I'm like, this thing is almost a lost cause anyway, I will always take an opportunity to just like cut into my knitting if I think that it can save me a ton of like painful frogging, especially if you're painfully frogging from a cast on. It's just like you have to do it row by row, or sorry, stitch by stitch. So if you're not in like seriously short supply of the yarn, if it's not gonna waste a ton of yarn, I've done this on like multiple projects now. You just cut it across and then grab the stitches again. Grab the stitches first and then cut. So that worked really well. So that was one challenge that I bravely overcame. But then the problem I'm having right now is now that I actually have like enough of this to try it on, I find that it's itchy on me and I know that I have pretty sensitive skin. So this probably wouldn't be a problem for most people with the Cascade Anchor Bay. I like knew from the feel of it on my hands that it wasn't gonna be as soft as the Drops Cotton Merino that I've used. Actually, that makes me wonder if this one is superwash. Maybe it's not. I'll add it in here if it is or it isn't. Anyway, so I knew it wasn't gonna be as soft, but it really gives me, I was gonna say gives me the ick. Gives me the itch, to be honest. So that is a total bummer, because like I said, I am always knitting things because I want to wear them. And so once I kind of blew through a lot of this and then I got it on and was like, yuck, I don't like how it feels on my skin, that just like completely halted my progress on it. I have been writing up a pattern for it, so I really do want to finish it. And I'm thinking maybe I'll like sell this version to someone, like get the yarn cost back and know that like it will be worn, and then maybe make another one for myself, because I do really want to wear it, but that is just kind of a bummer. And it's not something that I feel like I really foresaw, because I'm not like allergic to wool or anything, but I think I just, a delicate little rose, and sometimes prickly things hurt my petals. God, that sounded really creepy. So that is really annoying about this one, but let me actually try it on and show you. This is it. Sorry, I'm wearing a black bra, but anyway, so you can see it has kind of this curved front hem, but because the I-cord bind off is a little bit too tight, it keeps rolling up, and I also haven't blocked it yet. But basically with the straps, I decided I want them to be quite a bit wider, because I want to really emphasize this like little corset detail a lot more. And I am gonna add probably either like an I-cord or picot edging along here, so that will like help it lay flat, because right now it's curling in a little bit. But I just wish that it was like maybe an inch bigger or half an inch. And the deal with this top, I don't know, I had this idea a while ago. I just liked the idea of kind of an easy wearable top, but it just has this like special little girly detail on it. And I originally was going to make it so that it would have 2 straps on each side detached, so that you could like see the ribbon kind of lace through. But I ended up deciding to do 1 solid strap, because I thought that would make it a lot more bra friendly. Like it would be kind of annoying if you had this like visible skin through here, and then your like ugly bra strap was sticking in, showing with your like cute, pretty corset ribbon or I-cord. So that is why I went with this. But yeah, I just want to make it a little bit wider. And since I did this one like from here up, it's actually very easy for me to just redo the straps. So I'm going to do that. I've just been procrastinating on it because I was bummed out by the yarn. I am also writing up a pattern for this. I guess you could stay tuned for that one. But I do still have some stuff I have to rework. And yeah, I don't know, maybe when I block this one, the yarn itch will go down a little bit for me. I'm kind of curious to see, but yeah. So that is this. Okay, so my last work in progress this week is actually my 3rd sample of my Thine Own top. So this has also been kind of a saga. So I made the first one in like December, January in this black yarn. I was really happy with it. I wrote up a pattern for it. And then in the process of writing up the pattern, I was like, oh, how do I make this like fit better for people with really large like bust to rib cage body proportions? So I added a bunch of bust shaping, and I had originally been doing the increases like over on the sides, and then I added it to be like a vertical bust dart instead. But when you have like a vertical bust dart increases and then decreases right below, it actually adds like pretty significant sharp shaping, like a little bit of pointiness, and like a more exaggerated cup shape, basically. So I felt like that combined with some of the short row shaping, some of my testers were noticing, especially people who had larger bust sizes, that there was a little bit of excess fabric in the bust. So like in my attempt to make this like really fit people's busts really well, I made it like too big for their busts. So that's disappointing. And I mean, I really felt like kind of torn up about it for a bit, because I just felt really bad. Like these people gave their time and their materials to work on this, and I felt like, you know, the pattern and I kind of let them down. But honestly, all of the testers that I've had in this group have been so like helpful, generous. I just feel really grateful for that. So anyway, I mean, that is something that can kind of happen with testing a pattern. It might not work the way that you expect. And I think I got pretty lucky with all of my previous patterns. Those all went pretty straightforward. Yeah, I just feel really like grateful that my first experience of this happening was with such a like generous and understanding group of people. All that said, I ended up reworking the bust shaping again. So now it is along the sides, and I also changed a little bit of the upper band. I have you like go down a needle size instead of subtracting stitches, so you have like fewer dramatic increases to do, because it's basically like the faster you are increasing something in a specific area, the more like shaping it will give. So if you're like dramatically increasing things here and dramatically decreasing, you will have like literally cups of fabric. I wanted to like reduce the severity of it. So I am really hoping that this is gonna fix those issues. I also had some other like minor tweaks that I did for it. And I'm really grateful that I think like 4 or 5 testers said that they are down to just do the top over again. I really wouldn't like expect that of anyone, because like it is your hobby time. I don't feel entitled to it at all. Those people are, I guess, like interested enough in wearing the top that they want to like have it in their wardrobe, so they want to do it again. I'll say like a bunch of my testers have already finished their tops, and some of them are really happy with it, and I'm so happy that they're happy with it. Like, I think this version that has been created so far is still cute and like wearable, and I think there's like some of the people who don't want to remake it. Like, I hope that they'll still wear it and feel good in it, and I think they look great in it. But this is just like, you know, I really wanted, if I'm going to be publishing a pattern, I really want it to be something that I feel like everyone will feel overjoyed with when they finish it. I am also re-knitting a version along with them, because I want to make sure that it like fits and looks right. And especially because a lot of the people who are retesting this one have larger bust sizes. I have a pretty small bust, so I wanted to have that version too, to like compare and make sure that across the spectrum it's working pretty well. And this one is using Barocco Renew yarn, which is a DK weight wool, viscose, nylon, and a tiny percent of cashmere blend. I think it's recycled wool, and it feels really nice. I got it at my local yarn store. I was looking for like silk wool blends, but viscose is kind of like made from, I think, bamboo or cellulose or something. So I thought it's only 30% or kind of 35% with the cashmere wool, that I thought that this would kind of be nice for warm weather. And I'm actually really happy to have it in white, because I think it will just be really sweet and add another sort of different vibe than the other two that I already have. I don't know, I'm kind of blowing through it. I kind of just want to get ahead of it, because I feel bad when people find mistakes or like have to rip back. I would much rather that I have to rip back than someone who is testing for me. So yeah, I'm gonna try to get through the bust section on this one by probably within the next couple of days. I feel like this top has taught me so much more about bust shaping. It really can just go so deep, and it's like, it feels like physics or math trying to think about like the way that fabric in different places gives you different effects. I don't know. It's been like pretty interesting figuring out the ways that different shaping can like intersect with each other. My goal of this pattern, like a fully made to measure top, you can just plug your values into a calculator and it gives you this piece of clothing you can wear a ton of different ways. Like, I really stand behind the concept of it, so I'm really working hard to like bring it into fruition in a way that looks good on everyone. All that said, I'm pushing out the release date, kind of TBD, probably like maybe late May, kind of seeing on how this goes. Maybe I'm being a little bit of a perfectionist, but I just really wanted this to be right. I like really wanted someone to make it and feel like, wow, I have my new favorite top in my wardrobe that is so special to me. Those are my current works in progress, and I was hoping that between my last podcast and now I would start on this cardigan slash top idea that I've had bouncing around in my head for a little bit, but I am waiting on yarn for it. I was thinking about using some more of the Knit Picks Gloss DK yarn that I had, but I just decided it really does get kind of pilly when you wear it, and especially if it's a cardigan and you're like rubbing here, I don't want to make something that is gonna look worn too soon. So I actually, right after making my like White Lotus European summer aesthetic YouTube video, I ended up ordering a bunch of Knitting for Olive silk yarn, but it's held up in customs right now, which has never happened to me before. So I am just eagerly awaiting that. I am trying to take a trip to New York this week, And I was kind of hoping that I would have the yarn so I could knit on the train and make like a little project out of my trip, but maybe I will be working on this guy. Maybe I will pick up some yarn when I'm in New York. I feel like it is tough for me sometimes shopping in local Vermont yarn stores, especially once I started making my own designs. I don't always have a really clear vision of a fiber in my head, and so it helps you able to like see things and get inspired by them, and that's part of why I've been doing a lot of like stash knitting. But it's tough for me in Vermont because I feel like so many of the things are so rustic. Like I've had a really hard time finding silk yarn here, and I've gone to a bunch of different stores, like 3 or 4 different yarn stores. So that is what drives me to shop online, unfortunately. And yeah, so I'm hoping like maybe New York will have a slightly different aesthetic for yarn stores, or at least a higher density of yarn stores so I can check out a few when I'm there. And one of the friends that I'm probably gonna stay with is also a knitter, so that'll be fun. I did just get in the mail this week some yarn sent from Arcane Fiber Works, which I think is a Canadian fiber company. They didn't like tell me that I had to post about it or anything. They just were like, oh, can we send you yarn and you might want to use it in a project or like get to know us? Which was cool. I like that there's like no strings attached. And by the way, this like does not happen to me often. So this is like a cool one-off experience for me. There's 2 colorways. One of them is worsted weight and one of them is DK, and they're both this kind of like hand-dyed. I told them that I kind of like neutrals, and so these were the ones that they picked out. And I'm interested to see how it knits up. I really need to swatch with it because I'm not a huge variegated yarn person. I generally tend towards like solid colors or maybe a little bit of tonal variation. They also sent just like 2 one-off skeins of these tonal ones, which I think are really nice actually. I've been having a really hard time finding brown yarns in my local stores. This one is a little bit more caramel than I thought it would be, which I'm not sure if that looks good on me. I don't know actually. My lighting is a little yellow right now because it's very overcast and rainy, so it's all artificial light. But anyway, I've been looking for like a chocolate brown color for maybe a cardigan. So I don't know. I'm curious to swatch with these. I need to wind them up on my Swift, but I am curious because I feel like these colors are really pretty and soft. So I wonder if I'll be into the variegated look with like softer colors. I feel like I have a very bright, loud color palette in my personal style. I feel like I stick to fairly solid colored. Like I don't think that prints look great on me for some reason. And since I don't knit socks, I feel like that rules out a lot of the like super fun, bright, variegated yarns that a lot of companies come out with, like hand-dyed yarn. So maybe I will end up experimenting with some of these and like finding something I'm excited about with them. So thanks so much for watching to the end. That is what I'm working on lately. I'm excited to get some patterns out to testers soon and to hopefully finish this my Thine Own top, and also maybe I'll make a goal for my next knitting podcast. I want to have that like corset tie-up strap top done because I'm so close on that one. And maybe in the meantime, I've got some ideas percolating, so I don't know. Who even knows what I will show up with next time because I don't know yet. I'd love to know, like, are there any projects that you're working on right now that you're excited about or you're also sort of struggling through like I am with a couple of mine? And if this was fun, it would mean so much if you subscribed, and stay tuned for next time.